are something I think we all have to think about and for some struggle with, as I know was for myself. And something that's been really helpful to me in that area is sitting and thinking for a second before sharing if what I'm sharing is to help this individual and empower them in what we're here to accomplish, or is it to help me? Kind of similar to what Yvonne says, you know, am I helping them or am I helping me through them? And so I think if you can just take a second to think about what you're going to share, to ensure the appropriateness of it for that individual and its intention, I think that goes a long way as it has for myself.
The guidance someone once gave me is, don't share unresolved issues, that's number one. And number two, I should be able to draw a line between what I'm sharing and how I'm helping this other human being. And if I can't, then I need to think about that.
Sure. And one last thing I was just going to add is, you know, when you start to find yourself in situations where you're like, wow, I just overshared a bit, I encourage you to use that as insight for yourself. You know, maybe think about am I getting enough of an outlet to share what's on my mind? Do I have the right people or places around me to do it? Because it may be telling you something that it's showing up in your work with a client in crisis at that time. So,
what you should always do is make sure you're working in the interest of those we're serving. What you should always do is, if you get that sense in your gut that this didn't feel right, is have a conversation with one of your teammates or a supervisor about it and see what's there. What about the whole issue of when your teammates, or if a teammate's going through a hard time? Because I know in a lot of agencies, a lot of families, what happens is this rule of, you don't tell on me, I won't tell on you. You know that I said this and the truth was that, or I did this and it was about that. And before you know it, there's this whole thing of you can't really grow or evolve or deal with challenges because everyone has a secret that someone else is protecting. And nobody wants to tell on this person because then they'll tell. And it's sort of the end of growing and evolving. So what do we do when, this past year with COVID and buildings collapsing and so much horror in the world, not to mention all the normal things, any human being would have struggled through this year. But when you see a colleague going through a hard time, what do you do?
I feel like that's one of the great things about OST. I feel like everyone here, we all have each other's back. So if I'm having a hard time, I know I can reach out. If someone else is having a hard time, they should know that they can reach out. I check in on certain people, just, hey, how you doing? I know that me and Janelli have had a lot of back and forths and a lot of, man, it's a rough day. I'm glad that you reached out. So I feel like we do a great job being able to communicate with each other and having each other's back and being able to just help.
No, I definitely agree. There's been times when I needed Blake to just tell me, hey, listen, yeah, I know. It's just that would just be the whole conversation, because we just understood all that within that brief, yeah, I know, because in that we understood the level of stress it took, what that weight felt like, what's been feeling like as of recently, and the climate at which we're going through it, because sometimes it's at the same pace. And I'm glad that happens a lot within our team, within OST, because we can go rely on each other's I know that's just a simple 3 words, but in that simple 3 words, we are able to communicate. I understand completely what you're going through. I feel all that pain, and we just want to sit down, have that little 5 minutes before we get right back to it, because that's what we're about. So I think helping us continuously do that, because I think we do a great job of it, and I think that allows us to build a greater base so we can practice those basic principles and keep on rinsing and repeating and doing it better each time.
Jen?
I think this goes back to the question on the ethics code about being in a role of power and responsibilities. We want to promote that authenticity, but we have a mission and a responsibility, and it's important that we have good relationships with others, but that we also know that we have that power and responsibility. So having good relationships with our supervisors and having those open door policies, because if we don't see something that's right, that's going on, you know, it's my obligation to page that up, you know, to tell, you know, first and foremost, I'm here as a staff member, and I want to be friends with my coworkers, but there's that line that we have to balance between in the fact that we're here in a professional capacity. And you know, I have a really open communication with my team, and I think it all comes back to self-care. What are you doing for yourself to make sure that you can show up today to be the best that you can be? But then we also have that ability to just dump it, you know, when we're not feeling up to it and whatnot. So it's that power and responsibility component that comes back to it, and making sure we're being as authentic, but we're also being honest to the mission.
I think to add to what Jen said, this is the first job that I've had that's sort of like this. And at first it can maybe be a little overwhelming, you know, like Jen said, like, you know, she's our supervisor, she's like, you know, on top of everything. And I think the best part of all this is the accountability that it causes for all of us. And while accountability adds a lot of responsibility, like she said, and a lot of pressure, it cultivates such an awesome workplace to do the best that you can do. And I think that's just super awesome. While it may be, you know, like, you know, people are gonna be on me about this, but then it really makes a culture for success, and I appreciate that a lot. And this is the first time I've had that in, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
So on the other side, you know, as supervising and things like that, I like to believe that once we have trust and once we understand and realize that we do care for each other, including in leadership, then when performance is indeed being impacted, when something is off, that in itself could become almost like a loving confrontation of evidently something is off with you, right? Evidently, how could I support you because it's reflecting here? So it's this, you know, I just go back to, I gotta practice what I preach here. So if I'm teaching connect and direct, and I'm not doing that with my staff, when the direction is off, I have to assume there's a need not being met. So I think in being able to just really just lean in and sort of have that vulnerability with each other, which is scary and courageous, especially for enrollment. But loving and being able to then use, and the accountability piece is, I think, the balance of us all, you know?
So looking after each other is a really important part of what we do. You know, in the one email, you know, I said something that was, nobody was paying attention to it, but Jen paid attention. And she reached out to ask me how I was doing, and in all honesty, I wasn't doing well. And because she reached out, I was able to get help and support that I really, really, really needed. But my life was forever different because of that little tiny, tiny sign that you not only saw, but you responded to. There is no way for us to go through the things we go through and not to have challenges. And those will show up in all different ways. But looking after each other, including recognizing that there are signs that someone's having a hard time. You know, and there's all different ways that shows up for different people. And not going to the place of, well, I don't tell on you, you don't tell on me, but I care about you. And if I see these signs that you're struggling, I'll talk to you about it. Or if need be, I'll talk to your supervisor about it. That's not about getting people in trouble. That's about loving people and caring about people. Nobody here is going to have something bad happen to them because they're having a tough time. Nobody. They'll be embraced with enormous support. You know, if someone suddenly wakes up and says, I don't care about veterans anymore, and I don't care about the vision and mission of this agency, they're going to have a problem. But being human, going through human challenges, this is the best place in the world to be, because we're surrounded by people as long as their eyes and hearts are open and they have the courage to act. This is an amazing, amazing place.
And I think
So-
you have a nick for hiring the right people, because I've been here a while and I've seen people go and come. But for some reason, we always have people that have that heart, because I know like the first week I came to OST, I was like, I have to tell y'all, I need to go to court because I'm getting a divorce. And I was just like, they just embraced me. I was like you, I was scared, like I have to go to court next Monday and I just started this Monday, you know? And I went in there and I sat down and I told her my story. She was like, oh, go ahead, we got you, whatever you're going through. And I always say that OST has made me a really big softie. So if you see me on Zoom crying, it's because of OST. It helped me tap into that emotional side of me. That first time I did Emptying the Jug, I haven't stopped crying, guys, really. So I think it's you also, when you do your interviews, it's just something how you connect with people. Because even in my interview, the guy that was there, he had more education than me. He spoke really great, you know, and I was like, well, I definitely not getting this job. But what Seth saw in me was when he asked the question, you know, what is your case management style? When I forgot what I said, well, I like to listen. And then his eyes got big and he crossed his legs and he sat down and he listened to me speak. And all that education, I mean, I knew it was good, but he saw that in me, that this is my heart, this is what I like to do, you know, this is my passion. And I got the job, so I think it's credited to you hiring the right people.
Thank you.
You know, and that's why we've been so successful. And I can go up to Neverland and everybody's like, you work for who? OST? Oh, we have to keep you, you know? So, yeah.
And that's exactly what I look for.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, last thing, and then I know we have to move on. Love. So in the pairs training, Marisol talks about love and where the emotion of love comes from. The emotion of love, the feeling of love comes when there's a desire for something that is pleasurable. So if I am in need of someone to talk to, and I'm really starving for someone to listen to me, and someone listens to me, I'm gonna feel a lot of love towards that person. If I need a hug, I'm starving for affection, haven't had any affection for whatever, starving, and someone holds me, I'm gonna feel love. If I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bills, and suddenly someone comes and says, I'm gonna help you resolve that, I'm gonna feel love. You know, and for some people, it's the first time they've felt love in quite a while. And some people will say it, I love you. Some people won't because of whatever. But that's very normal for the people we serve when we get it right, to feel love. But it's important that adds another layer of responsibility to what we do. Because not only are we serving people who are very vulnerable, who are going through or have recently been through trauma, but also people where when we do what we do the way we do it, they're gonna feel a lot of feelings of love towards the person they identify with making that happen. So how do you deal with that? I've had people come to me shaken up because a veteran said, I love you. And that means all different things to different people, but anyone else. These principles are a journey. They're not you're this, they're a journey. They're a journey that makes it safe for us all to come together and to do our best. You know, it begins with, you know, loving the people that come to us in this context. It includes looking after each other. And that also means when each other is going through tough times, caring enough to either have a conversation or whatever else that might take. And it's a work in progress, you know, like all of us. The ability to speak to each other, to reach out, to respond to that gut instinct that says, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. You're surrounded by the most extraordinary people I could ever imagine being surrounded by. So please embrace that journey. Know that it's a huge part of our culture, the foundation of everything we do. And for all these years ahead, please keep it alive and nurture it. So, all right, what's next?
Please take a 5-minute break to get yourself stretched and breathed out. And then let's come in here and share some awards with each other. So after we do that, we'll present some awards. And then I'm going to ask everyone to stay in this room before we have lunch so that Seth could take some group photos of us. And then once we do that, we'll finish the day and have lunch in here. So let's get started. And our first award today is actually going to be presented to Seth Eisenberg. You weren't, but this morning you talked to us a lot about the vision and how important it is to stay aligned to it. And so because of that, we want to present you with the 2020 Vision Award at Operations.